Paul letter to the Romans, one of the longest, most significant things ever written by the man who formerly known as Saul of Tarsus, a Jewish rabbi belonging to a group known as the Pharaohs, was passionate, devoted to the Torah of Moses and the tradition of Israel, saw Jesus and his father as a threat. But then he had a radical encounter with risen Jesus, who commissioned him as an apostle, like a official representative in the world of non-Jewish people called Gentiles in the Bible. So he started going by the Roman name Paul. He traveled all around the ancient Roman Empire, telling people about Jesus, risen King Jesus, forming his followers, his new community called the churches. Paul made sure to write letters to his new Jesus communities to help them foster their faith or their as Christians. Book of Rome is one of these. It was actually written late in his career. Not written from the book of Acts. The Church of Rome existed sometime. I think it was Jewish and non-Jewish followers of Jesus. At one point, Roman Emperor Claudius expelled all Jewish people from Rome. And then about 5 years later, all these Jews, including Jesus, followed to return. And when they did, they found a church that very non-Jewish custom and practice, so created a lot of attention. So about the Roman church was divided. People disagreed about how to follow Jesus, debating how would a non-Jewish Christian celebrate the Sabbath, teach kosher, or circumstance. Paul wrote this letter to accomplish a few things. He wanted the divided church to become unified. And a practical purpose, he was hoping the Roman church could become a staging ground, in addition to go even further all the way to Spain. So the circumstance motivated Paul to write out the fullest nation of the gospel. The good news that he was announcing of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. A letter designed to have four main movements, once unified as one long prolongation of the gospel. The gospel, Paul says, the first all reveal God's righteousness, and then also creates a humanity which is fulfills God's promise to Israel. And so this gospel is going to unify the church. This video is going to explore ideas chapter 1 to 4. Opens by reducing and by God, spreading the gospel of Jesus. How he's the Messiah of Israel, who was raised from the dead, Son of God, King of nations. And Jesus now calls all humanity under loving. Paul says the good news of what Jesus is. First of all, God's power to save people who trust in Him. And second, it reveals God's righteousness. Now, righteousness is a rich Old Testament word for Paul. It describes God's character, that He owes us justice for what is right and what is good, faithful and unjust to fulfill His promises. Paul saying the story of Jesus shows how God's done both of these things. How? It goes forward into a long, creative retelling of Genesis 3:11. Shows all Gentiles in the world, all the nations, have become trapped in a spiral of sin, selfishness. Human heart and the mind and broken, Paul says, turned away from God to embrace idolatry, which means finding ultimate significance in creating things and giving ultimate allegiance to things that are not God. As a result, distortions of humanity and destruction behavior. Soul's death is a humanity since guilty as charged, becomes righteous on us in God. So people of Israel say, what's a good thing then? It's God choose our people out among the nations. He saves us out of slavery in Egypt. He gives the laws of Torah, like the Sabbath, intercourse, and circumcision, all together show us how to live as good as God's whole people. But Paul says it's not so fast. He recalls the story of Torah and the rest of the Old Testament, shows that Israel was unfaithful, sinful, idolatrous, more broken than the rest of humanity. Israel is actually more guilty than the Gentiles, Paul says, because they have no Torah, they should know better. And so Paul concludes, all humanity, Gentiles, Israelites, hopelessly trapped and the guilty before God. But that's not the final word. The good news about Jesus is God's response. Instead of holding humanity guilt, Jesus came as Israel's Messiah to die on behalf of all people as sacrifice for sin. As a representative, Jesus took unto Himself all the consequences of the pain, sin, and the death, and that we are caused in the world. Okay, well, by resurrection from the dead, His new resurrection life and makes available to others. Jesus became what we are, so we might become what He is. And so Paul says it's how God justifies those who trust or faith in Jesus. Not justification, other results from term of Paul. It's related to God's righteousness. Later means declared righteousness. Because of Jesus did on their behalf, we're given a new statute before God. Instead of finding guilty, God declares person's right relationship with Him and is forgiven. Justification results in new family. Those who trust in Jesus is given a place among God's covenant people, of which other results in a new future, which begins journey of transformation by God's grace. And so all things that justification are God's gift to those through the faith are in Christ. And so did Paul in chapter 4 to explore the huge implications of all this as part of God's covenant family. It goes back to the story of Abraham, Genesis chapter 15. Before any of the laws of Torah was given to Israel, Abraham was justified for declaring riches for God. How? God promised Abraham would become a father, a large multi-ethnic family that would receive God's blessing. But his wife, Sarah, were already old, and they never had been children. Nonetheless, Abraham had radical faith and trusting God's promise, and God still declared it precious. So Paul says that Abraham has become the father of God, new covenant family, and spreading all around the world, made of Jews and Gentiles, that same kind of faith and trust in one, fulfilled God's promise to Abraham. Jesus is the Messiah. So that's Paul summarized with the Bumanglag here. I just want to, because of the foundation and the rest of the letter, all humanity is hopelessly trapped in sin and needs to be rescued. The rescue, however, is not going to happen by people trying to obey the laws of Torah. Rather, God's righteous character has moved in Him, rescue the world through Jesus' death and resurrection, so that create a multi-ethnic family, Abraham, based on his own covenant people. And so Paul's going to show on how families are part of something much bigger that calls a new way of life. It's all going to be rooted in the core ideas explored in the next chapter. Paul's letter to the Romans. Check out the first video we explore Paul, who wrote this letter. All humanity is hopelessly trapped in sin and to be rescued. The rescue is not going to happen by people with the laws of Torah. Rather, God's righteousness has moved in Him, rescued the world through Jesus' death and resurrection, so that it could create a faith-based, multi-ethnic family, Abraham, and his people. On the remaining three movements of the letter of Romans, Paul is going to develop these ideals even more. So remember, Paul's exploration of justification by faith. When people trust in Jesus' death, resurrection was for them, are given a new status, right with God, placed in a new family, covenant people Abraham, and they're given a new future, the hope of transformation of life. Paul wants to show how reality shapes every part of their existence, because this family means being part of His new humanity, because creating Jesus and the Spirit. So Paul goes back to the first human character, biblical story, Adam. His name means so humanity. Adam, like all humanity after him, has shown sin, selfishness. So every face God's judgment because they sin's influence resulting in death. Paul contrasts Adam and Jesus, and he says, "Is new Adam, a human who live faithful, abundant to God, and so in truth act as our sacrificial love. Jesus offers life as a gift to others, so they be justified before God. Jesus stands at the heads of new humanity as he transformed by this gift." Which leads them to chapter 6. Paul reminds these Christians in Rome, choosing to follow Jesus means leaving the old Adam's like humanity, entering a new Jesus-like humanity. Our baptism was a sacred symbol of the transition. Humanity died with Jesus, and humanity rises with Him from the dead. A person trusting in Jesus, the life becomes joined in His life. not true of him is not true of them. So people accept identity Jesus like humans, and they did become wholehearted humans who can truly love God and live neighbor. Now, if creating a new humanity was always God's purpose, Paul asks in chapter 7, what's the point of God giving Israel the new law and Hebrew the Torah? On a side note, when Paul uses the word law, he uses means storyline, message, the first 5 books of the Bible. Other times, he's specifically referring to hundreds of commands given to Moses and found in the Torah. Taking me as Paul focus here. What's the purpose of all these commands? Paul says the commands of the Torah were good, for they show God how Israel was to live. But if you read the story of the land of Torah, Israel broke all these commands. The more laws Israel received, where he played the sin of Adam and rebelled. So when God gave his people much moral rules to obey, then that fixed the problem of a sinful heart. So paradoxically, these rules made Israel even more guilty. Like Paul says, the paradox is the point. God's goal was to make it crystal clear its evil hijacked the human heart. And Torah is a not good thing about it. Paul says in chapter 8, solution has arrived in Jesus in the Spirit. And here's how. Commands of the Torah acted like a magnifying glass. It focused the problems of human condition into their own place. One people to Israel. Now Israel represented Jesus, the Messiah, has paid for the debt and all that sin, the death and the resurrection. And now Jesus will release the Spirit into his family, transform their heart, so they can fulfill the call of all the new Torah commands to love God, his neighbor. And there's more. God renewal humans being the first step of his large mission, rescue of all new creation, making a place where his love gets the final word. Like it's here chapter 1 to 8 as long as flowing thought here. Where just some other Christians, of all this God's purpose, what's the current status of the Paul's fellow Israelites who announced Jesus as the Messiah? How does the story fulfill God's promise to them? Paul begins chapter 9 with his own anguish of fellow Israelites who don't think Jesus is the Messiah. Leads them to reflect on Israel of the past from the Old Testament story. It reminds us simply of being unethic Israelites, physical made unlikely, faithful member of the covenant family. Paul shows us how God has always selected covenant Abraham's family, carry the line of promise. The point is now that promise is carried on as we follow Jesus. He reminds us that for a long time, people outside the family have rejected God's will. He reminds us the story of Israel and golden calf and the failed rebellion. Shows us how God, able to over the rejection of him, actually accomplished redemptive purposes. It's chapter 10, Paul turns his focus to Israel in the present. Remember Israel's accusations because they based the covenant relationship with God on the performance of command of the Torah. And so they don't recognize how God has done through Jesus, your new covenant family on basis of faith. And so Paul asks in chapter 11, what is Israel's future? Is God within his people? No, he says. There's a ton of Jewish people, including himself, who do recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So there's also a lot who don't. God has been able to use the rejection for his own purposes. God wants to spread even quicker and farther into the Gentile world. Make a family of Abraham even larger and more ethic. Paul describes God's covenant family as a big olive tree. Rejected of Jesus have been broken off, so to speak. And the Gentiles are like branches that have been grafted into family a tree. However, Paul says one day Jesus has known knowledge of his own people. He doesn't offer any detail about how. But simply trusts God's character and promise. He won't give up on his covenant people. Transition to the final section of book 16. And the picture, faith in Jesus. Jews and Gentiles are now together in his family. Not a humanity that being transformed by God's Spirit. So how God fulfilling his ancient promises. Therefore, the only reasonable response Jewish and non-Jewish Christians on a unified church. Verse 13 shows unity will come, commitment to love, forgive each other. Love will look like everybody using diversity gifts and talents to serve one another in the church. It also means humility and forgiveness. Different ethnic groups, culture come together in Jesus. Conflict is inevitable. We can only overcome through the hard work of forgiveness, reconciliation. So should show the greatness, virtues, love, that fulfills the greatest commands. For God is neighbor as yourself. Chapter 14-15 says, focus specifically on the issue, create ethnic division in the Roman Church. There's a dispute about the Jewish food laws and Sabbath. I'll say these practices don't define who is out of Jesus' family. People different from the culture important, not essential issues. You need to learn how to respect each other's difference. This way that love will heal and unify family. Mom close the leader of commending Phoebe, was a key to the church of Kinkray. She had the honor of carrying, perhaps reading the letter aloud to Roman churches for the first time. Paul concludes that greeting all the people hasn't seen for a long time. That's the end. Whoa. You see better how all these pieces of the letter fit together and show what profound masterpieces truly is. That's what the letter of Romans is all about.